is Olena Semenova. I'm from Ukraine, from the Ukrainian LGBT Association Liga, and I'm really grateful to Ljubljana Pride for inviting me here and for raising up the question of homophobia in the Eastern European region, especially in Russia. So Russia is the country that really, influences the politics in our region, and for us, it's our common problem and our common issue. And I'm really grateful that today we have a possibility to discuss this issue together with Russian activists. So we have today guests online, right? So we have an anonymous member of Russian LGBT network. So this is kind of the biggest LGBT organization in Russia, and actually they work in all Russian regions with strategic litigation and development of LGBT movement in Russian regions. They monitor a lot and they provide services for community. They have a hotline for community, so they do a lot. And actually this is the organization that help LGBT people in Chechnya to avoid homophobia and to escape this region that is really dangerous now. We also have Nikolai Baev, a Russian LGBT activist who was participating till 2013 in the human rights project called Gay Russia, and he was also co-founder and organizer of Moscow Gay Pride, and he is contributing to the site of Russian LGBT history, lgbtru.com. And actually he's kind of updates information all the time. He monitors the Russian politics and media on LGBT issues. And as well, we will have a journalist of Freedom Europe Radio, Sergei Hazov-Kassia, and he is working on the issue of gay men persecution in Chechnya, and he's participating in protests, and he's an active also member of the community. So just welcome these people today here, and they will first describe the situation in Russia, and then you're welcome to ask questions.
We will try to set up now the video, so you can already see Nikolai.
Nikolai, can you hear us? Could you please shortly describe the situation in Russia at the moment? So what's going on in Russia with human rights for LGBT people?
Not be openly gay or the situation has been more difficult and more serious because of conflict with Ukraine. You know about this conflict, about the annexion of Crimea and so on. Official Russian authorities decided that they should play this homophobic card in political games. I mean, they declared European Union who introduced sanctions against Russian Federation. They declared it so-called gay row. I mean, Euro plus gay, it is gay row. This very word is very widespread in Russian media right now, especially in homophobic media. Well, there is the point is to make a very strong difference between Russia and between European Union, United States, and all countries which support LGBT equality and LGBT rights. So, I mean that these homophobic ideas became official ideology of Russian authorities, Russian government, and the next step, what we have right now, and what we can discuss, this is persecutions of gay men in Chechnya. This is next continuation of the politics which started in Russia in 2013. This is next level. Okay, it's a small region within Russian Federation, Republic of Chechnya. Okay, but in this region, it became possible to repress gay men just because they are gay. I think this is a logical continuation of that politics that Russian authorities led in few last years. Well, I think the situation is very serious and we have to react to this.
Okay, Nikolai, so we can underline that actually the situation that goes on now in Chechnya is kind of a consequence of everything you had in Russian politics before, right? Okay, Sergei, can you add something to this? Can you hear us?
Yeah, hi. I'm very happy to participate in this as well. So hello to everybody. It's hard to add anything. I think Chechnya is a region. The euro is a part of Russian Federation and by the constitution as well. But de facto is it exists beyond the bounds of Russian juridical system. So they do not know Russian laws. They do not follow Russian laws. They think they can break Russian laws anytime they want because they just happen to live this way. And there are a lot of people being killed and tortured in Chechnya every day on everyday basis due to their religious beliefs, or if they have any opposition views, or can be viewed as opposition views by the Chechenian authorities. So I personally see this persecution of gay men in the Republic of Chechnya as a demonstration of the way this region lives, actually. So nobody knows what triggered this persecution end of last year and maybe the beginning of this year. Some people say it was these gay prides that were organized by colleagues, or more like all these lessons to organize gay prides in Russian regions. But my sources I spoke with, they said that there was no connection with the gay prides actually. And so I think the anti-gay law that was passed in 2013 is a very bad sign as well. But what happens in Chechnya, I mean, we should not consider it as a part of Russia in juridical terms. So what I want to say that nobody knows what triggered this situation. Nobody knows why did they start to persecute homosexuals in the Republic of Chechnya. They just think that they can do that because it's opposite of their religious views and of the way, the traditional way and conservative way they're living. And they actually, I'm sure they didn't wait for such a response from the international community and for such a scandal amongst Russian media and international media, etc. So they just didn't wait for it. They just didn't think it could bring the world and Russia and Chechnya to the current situation.
Okay, thank you. I want to address now Russian LGBT network. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I would like to say first of all that I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk. And talking about Chechnya, I would like to start with saying that, of course, Russia is a homophobic country. And of course, people are being beaten and even killed in Russia, but what's going on, like for being homosexual. But what's going on in Chechnya right now is absolutely unprecedented. So, still, Chechnya is a part of Russia. And what's going on is that citizens of Russia are being killed, tortured, and kidnapped just because of their sexual orientation and gender identity. And the main thing is that the authorities, they don't do anything about that.
Can you tell us the whole story? So from the very beginning, how it was discovered, what was the media role in that? So how actually people found out what's going on in Chechnya?
Well, for us, it all started in the very end of March when we started to receive messages in the social network from anonymous persons, and they were saying that something really wrong is going in Chechnya, and we started to investigate this information, to check it with other human rights defenders, and at the same time we started a hotline specifically for this purpose. And at some point, many human rights defenders who work in this region, they confirmed this information, and we realized that really people are kidnapped and tortured. And then we started to receive messages from people from Chechnya. And that time we realized that the only thing we could do in this situation is evacuation, because Chechnya is a very specific region, and in many ways it is a state within the state. So we couldn't go there and save people. We couldn't really rely on the law enforcement agencies. So we started the evacuation immediately. And by now we were contacted by around 100 people from the region. And we have already evacuated around 50 people from the region, and 12 people are already relocated abroad. Because for those people, it's just unsafe to stay in Russia, because we know that in some cases, relatives of these homosexual men are already going out of Chechnya, going to other Russian cities, specifically to hunt these people, to find them, and probably to kill them.
Okay, yeah, that's dangerous, you know. But tell us, please, you mean with evacuation, so what you do? So people escape to Moscow or to St. Petersburg or to Europe. So tell us about this fact, please.
Can I tell you one story?
Okay, Nikolai, but could you please move the microphone closer to you, because we can't hear you well?
Yes. I just would like to tell you one story. Just a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I met in Moscow a gay guy who was from Chechnya, and he was a Chechen gay, and he escaped. Exactly, it was the situation just described by my colleagues. Well, it happened just before all these stories became publicly known. Well, I just would like to say that this is many years before, and this young man, he has been kidnapped by secret services, by FSB officers, and he has been beaten and tortured, and they needed money from him. So he has been blackmailed. They told him, if you don't give us money, we will tell your relatives, your family, that you are gay. Well, and he escaped. He literally escaped from this region. And he lived in Moscow several months. When I met him, he was forced to change secret service and his family could search for him. And this guy escaped finally to France. And I personally, because I knew him and I knew the story, I personally helped him. And now he lives in France and he received asylum in this country. Well, I just would like to tell you, okay, religion, beliefs, and so on and so on. But you know, the homophobia in Russia, this is not the matter of religious beliefs. Principally, okay, Chechnya, perhaps it's very religiously influenced region in Russia, but principally, Russian homophobia, it is not religious homophobia. It's a very heteronormative homophobia, very heterosexist homophobia. And what Russian authorities do now, they try to give example of right man, of macho man, of a man who is heterosexual, who is family man, who has many children, which is needed for Russian Federation, which is spoken by President Putin, because they need more population, they need more children in this country. And this is another point when Russian official propaganda, they try to make LGBT people responsible for low level of children, of poor demographic situation in Russian Federation. Well, I just would like to tell you, this story have been already in our country, and now it just became publicly known. Okay.
Actually, I would like to add to Nikolai's story. I just spoke to another Chechen victim a couple of days ago, and he was actually from Dagestan. He wasn't Chechen, but he was living in Moscow. He'd been living in Moscow since a couple of years. And so he was working as a escort boy in whatever internet thing. And he was trapped by Caucasian guys. He said a couple of them were from Dagestan, the others he supposed were Chechenians, though he doesn't speak the language. And they did to him exactly the same thing that they used to do with the gay men in Chechnya and Dagestan and other Caucasian republics. So they actually trapped him in the room, they beaten him up, they filmed everything what they did to him, and they said, well, we have your phone in our hands now, we're going to send this video to your mother and to all of your relatives. So now he's trying to escape from Russia as well. So yeah, I mean, it was going on for a while, but not at the scale that we saw last month.
Okay, Sergey, I also have a question to you. Can you please describe shortly for us Chechnya, Dagestan? So what's the difference of these regions out of other regions in Russia, and why actually they consider to be the most dangerous for LGBT people, and why actually LGBT people escaping out of these regions to, I don't know, Moscow or capital city or other regions are still not safe?
First of all, Chechnya stays a bit apart from the other Caucasian republics because of we had two wars in Chechnya in 1993 and 1998. And then the capital of Chechnya was completely destroyed. Lots of other towns were destroyed as well. And Chechnya was always, and we didn't have these much of war in other Caucasian republics, right? So Chechnya was always standing apart because we were trying to, the Putin government, they were trying to pay off the stability, as they call it. So Chechenians wouldn't make the war again against Russians. They wouldn't participate in terrorist attacks, etc. And so they put this leader in place, Ramzan Kadyrov, who is the son of an ex-Chechenian leader who was killed in a terrorist attack as well. And so Ramzan Kadyrov, who actually rules Chechnya as his own state. It's a medieval, Chechnya is not Russia in terms that Chechnya is a medieval totalitarian state where no one can say anything against the authorities. Otherwise, he would be or thrown out from the republic, or killed, or tortured, arrested. His relatives would be arrested, and his house would be burned. It's completely 14th century thing. They actually they find people who are fighting in ISIS in Iraq and Syria for ISIS, and they're burning the houses of their families in Chechnya who are not fighting anywhere, right? So Chechenians themselves, they look at themselves as a pure nation, as they call it. They say we are the best on the Caucasian region because we saved our tradition, we saved our conservatism, we live according to the God's law, and we can do whatever we want because we are at the frame of the army of Ramzan Kadyrov. So I believe they actually sincerely, they don't understand what LGBT means, and they sincerely do not want this phenomenon in the republic, right? They think it's just impossible to have gays in Chechnya. It's a shame for the whole thing, for the whole republic, for the nation. And if you have a gay guy or lesbian girl in your family, or if you have a woman who mistreated her duties, or she had any sexual or any love relationship before marriage, etc., to clean up this shame, he or she must be killed, basically. We can see that in other Muslim states like Palestine, for example, where lots of young women killed by their relatives. Otherwise, if they don't escape to European countries. So Chechnya is separate from Dagestan and other republics, but in other republics it exists as well. If you have a shame in a family, then this shame must be washed off by blood.
Okay, Russian LGBT network. So I wouldn't even ask if there is any LGBT movement in Chechnya. So I believe there is not because of the conditions Sergei just recently described. But is there any strategy? What's next? So how you are helping LGBT people in Chechnya, and what actually is the international reaction, and if this international reaction really helps?
Well, of course, there is no LGBT movement or even no LGBT activism or even open LGBT people in Chechnya at all. Because as my colleague said before, homosexuality is a too huge stigma for people who are living there. But there are still LGBT people, and as I said before, these are Russian people basically because Chechnya is part of Russia, and those people are being kidnapped, tortured, and killed. And what we can do right now is to evacuate those people in danger who manage to contact us because, well, basically for those people, it's a really scary thing to trust to any outsiders. And in the very beginning, when the first people were contacting us, they were really afraid. And they were not sure if we were going to kill them or to help them. So I can say that only the bravest managed to contact us. And our main goal right now in this situation is to save, to evacuate those who managed to contact us. And another thing is investigation. Like in the very beginning, federal authorities were absolutely silent about this situation. They didn't do anything, and they even didn't want to talk about that. And basically, we believe that it is the reaction of the international community that made them to do something. Officially, there is an investigation which started around months ago, but it's absolutely not transparent and it's absolutely non-effective. So right now we believe that there should be more pressure from the international community, and we believe that there should be some investigation with intervention of international organizations. And first of all, of course, we want the special rapporteur to be appointed to investigate this situation. Because as my colleague said before, we don't really know when it started. When first people contacted us, they were saying about the end of February. Then there were people who were talking about the end of December 2016. But Chechnya is a very closed region, very specific, and it might be that such things happened before. So therefore, we believe that there should be like proper, open, and efficient investigation in this situation to like understand what is going on, when it started, who is responsible for that. And of course, we believe that the responsible parties will be punished, despite of all the difficulties.
Right. I recently heard statement of the leaders of Republic of Chechnya that actually there are no LGBT people in their state, so there could be not any situation related to LGBT people because they just don't have some. So can you please tell us what was the reaction of the Russian authorities on UN statement about Chechnya, and also Angela Merkel and the new president of France, they also did some statements of the situation in Chechnya. Is there any reaction? Does it influence somehow the situation?
Yes, can I describe the reaction of Russian authorities? It's a very interesting thing because, as you know, Mr. President Putin, he says always, no gay person is...
Nikolai, please just your microphone. We can't hear you well, so just mind the microphone. Where is that?
And now, can you hear me as well? It's okay?
Not
No?
not very.
No, and now. No, it's okay? No?
Okay, let's try.
Yeah, okay, let's try. Well, Mr. Putin, he says always, no gay person is being discriminated in Russia. What does he mean? He means only there is no legislation which bans gay sex between men. This is the only thing he means. So the discrimination for Russian authority, it means exclusively gay sex and nothing more. But discrimination is now much more wider. Discrimination concerns jobs, education, and many things, social things, political things, and so on. But Mr. Putin, he says always, look, we don't have any legislation which prohibits gay sex between men. So, and now the same situation. The official spokesman of Mr. Putin, Mr. Dmitry Peskov, he said officially, no gay person applied any claims in Chechnya against prosecution. But just imagine, if any gay man can come, for example, into police station and say to the police, I have been beaten and tortured just because I am a gay person. It's impossible. Well, this is vicious circle. This is what I mean. Vicious circle. No visibility, no gay men, no persecution, no discrimination. This is the logic of Russian authorities.
Okay, thank you. Sergei, can you tell us what is the media reaction in Russia? Do actually media report something? Do actually media react?
Yeah, of course. Well, there are two kinds of media in Russia. One is state-controlled. The second one is independent, what we can call it. So the independent media were talking a lot about this issue, about the persecution of gay men, and actually it's one of the opposition media, Novaya Gazeta, that started it up. With this reporting exactly, I think my mates from the Russian LGBT network were receiving these messages before the reporting. But as soon as the article appeared in Novaya Gazeta, this began a big case in Russia and then abroad. So, of course, in liberal media, as we call them, it's still discussed, and everybody's horrified. Everybody's horrified because, I mean, we kind of, if we receive reports from Iran that gay guys could be put to death, or from other African countries, we think it's so far, it's not us, it's not our tradition, our way of life. But here we have our country and our fellow citizens who are tortured because of their sexual orientation. So yeah, it's a big thing.
Okay, thank you. And could you tell us how actually Novaya Gazeta received these messages, or how actually they digged in the topic, and how actually they did get into the problem, into the issue?
Well,
Tell us the story from the very
journal.
beginning, just this piece, how it became actually loud
Yeah,
in
I got
Russia.
it. So the journalist who written it, Елена Milashina, she's been working with Caucasus and Chechnya for few, I think, for 5 years or more. I don't know the number, but she's been working on the region since a while. So she has her, as she claims in her article, she has sources in Ministry of Internal Affairs in Chechnya, who's presided by Russian men, by Chechnya, and in other official bodies. So she got the messages from there, and she got the messages from the victims as well. And in Novaya Gazeta, they confirmed at least 3 names of people who were killed. They suppose there are more. And so this is how it started. Yeah. And actually, what they do, the Chechenians, when I was working on my article, I found out one of the names of those killed people, and the other one was a journalist who was alive. Finally, I actually must. But so one of the journalists who was working for Chechen TV, I could mention the name, of course. When he passed through this torturing prison in Argun, his name was just whipped off everywhere. So, like in George Orwell 1984 novel, like if he never worked for this TV channel in Chechnya, or like he never did anything before. So I found out that he was working, like some of the traces of his career, journalistic career in Grozny, with other media, but not on this TV channel. So they're so ashamed, as we can say, that they are gay men who were on the upper level of Chechen society, career-wise, if you want, that they're trying to wipe this off just to not to speak about this anymore.
Okay, thank you. Russian LGBT network, so you do strategic litigation for LGBTQI human rights in Russia. Is there a possibility, is there hope that someone will sue Chechen Republic for all they did?
Well, it is really complicated question. Of course, we have a hope, and basically we do all the work around Chechnya because of that. We are collecting materials, and right now, together with Novaya Gazeta and Elena Milashina, we are going to prepare a special report devoted to Chechnya, and this report is to be presented in the Council of Europe in the end of June. There will be a special meeting of the Parliamentary Assembly, and we believe that might be the special rapporteur will be appointed for this case. And of course, we believe that there will be people willing to sue Chechnya for what's going on, to sue some leaders. But it's all really complicated. Like, for you to understand what Chechnya is, I would like to give you an example. When it all started, a lot of journalists were looking for people from Chechnya, LGBT people from Chechnya who already moved to other countries and who would talk about their past in Chechnya, how it was to be a homosexual person. And it was really hard, almost impossible to find such a person, because people, even being far away, they're still afraid. They can be found and punished for being openly homosexual person from Chechnya. So it's complicated because people are afraid. And first of all, it is important to protect those people, for them to be secure. And for them to be secure, it's important for them to be really far away from Russia. And one of the biggest issues we are facing right now is visa issues, because despite of all the high statements made by Angela Merkel and many other politicians, it's really hard to get visas for these people in Chechnya, for them to go out of Russia. And basically it's really disappointing, because we're not talking about thousands of people, we're talking about, like right now, about 100 people. So I cannot say right now what's going to happen, and I doubt that anyone can say what is going to happen with this situation. But of course, we have some hope that people responsible are going to be punished. That's why we do all the work around Chechnya.
Okay, thank you. So,
The problem also,
yeah.
yeah, the problem also is that at least all the guys I spoke with who escaped from Chechnya and who are now being transported to other countries. I don't know if my colleague from Russian LGBT network would agree with me, but most of them are young people. And of course, it's easier for a young person to leave, right? But some of them have got already families and wives and kids and children, because in Chechnya, if you're a man or woman, whatever, you're supposed to get married and to have a family, no matter your sexual orientation. So I think there are a lot of elder people, or like my age, whatever, in their 30s, 40s, maybe older, who still lead their secret life in Chechnya, and who cannot possibly leave because they have their families, their work, and the decision to break with all that is much harder to do.
Yes, I would like to agree with my colleague, because almost all people we evacuated, almost all those men who were imprisoned and tortured, they're having families actually. They're having families and kids, because it's impossible to live other ways in Chechnya.
So, what is the estimated number for you? Do you have any numbers? So, how many people need help, and actually, how many people you need to evacuate from Chechnya?
Well, in terms of numbers, it's really difficult to talk about any numbers. As I said before, there should be proper investigation to understand. We can confirm that there were hundreds of people who were imprisoned, and we know that at least 26 people were killed. But again, it's really, really difficult to talk about any numbers, because all the information we are getting is information we are getting from people who were imprisoned. So all the information, first of all, a bit outdated, and second, it's really difficult to judge how many prisons there were, how many people were imprisoned, and so on.
You said 20 to 60 were killed.
26. Novaya
26.
Gazeta confirmed 26 cases of people who were killed.
Okay, this is a very sad information, very sad update. Well, but I think we have kind of a picture of what's going on in the regions, and I would like to ask the audience if you have questions. If you have questions to our speakers today, to people who work with victims of homophobia in Chechnya directly, and if you want to know something, and if you want to know some numbers or facts.
Hello, it works? Yes. I'm Mitya from Legabitra. I just wanted to ask the one question: how can we help? What can we do from here?
I think Russian LGBT network, so I think this is the question for you, first of all.
Well, thank you so much for this question. As I said before, international community already did a lot, because the official investigation started, we believe so, just because of the international pressure. And we actually ask everyone to continue your support, to continue to show your solidarity, to organize protest actions for the Kremlin to know that actually all the world is watching. They should know that people of Russia remember what's going on in Chechnya, or that they don't want to like monsters, and that's how they look right now. Also, we would like to ask everyone to urge the local governments in your countries actually to talk about visa issues for those people from Chechnya, because for them, as I said before, it's just deadly dangerous to stay in Russia.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for taking part in this discussion, and thank you for lighten up the question for our audience. And I want to invite Simona.
Okay, as the other microphone is floating around, I'll use this one. So thank you all once again for being part of this panel. So as you know, I'm from Ljubljana Pride. And, you know, we are here in Slovenia and we are quite also small LGBT community. Also, the Ljubljana Pride Association is quite a small organization. So when we were following mostly on social media what is happening in Chechnya in the last weeks, in the last couple of months, obviously this question that my colleague from a sister organization here asked before, what we can do, became more and more also important for us. So we have now this idea that actually we want to work and we started to work with some other LGBT organizations and other international organizations from civil society side to actually start, I will say, another petition. I will say another because we are very much aware of what has already been done, and we've shared this petition also with you, so you know what is the content of it, because our estimation was that there is already efforts out there in the community to raise awareness about what is happening in Russia and in particularly in Chechnya, and there is also some efforts also to support financially also, I think, a little bit the LGBT also Russian LGBT network, but in particularly, you know, everything what needs to happen in order to offer sanctuary to people while still in Russia. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we find a good way how to pressure the most as we can our national leaders, our prime ministers, our parliaments, especially like also ministries of foreign affairs and internal affairs and so on, what they can do. So we came up with a petition that calls for kind of emergency asylum in a way, and also faster and much easier visa process for LGBT people from Chechnya. So I wanted to ask you also, what is your perception of these kind of actions? Because obviously saying that, you know, we are still only civil society sitting here today, but how do you view these kind of attempts to support, or is it, do you from your perspective feel that this is something that could actually also help? And maybe particularly to Russia LGBT network to start, and then maybe Nikolai and Sergei can also comment on that.
Can you tell me one thing? First of all help will be very appreciated. And what has been done already by international communities, by communities in different countries, is great work. We are very grateful to you for this. You should remember that Russian authorities are very unstoppable to do what they want. And you can see this just a few last years. They made election of Crimea, they made war in Ukraine, they made what they want. So, of course, we have to make pressure on Russian authorities. But I think the main point, we should tell about these things as loud as possible. And I think the main point was that few gay men from Chechnya who escaped from Russia, who are located now in safety, some European countries, they can make statements about because if you remember, the statement of President of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, upon all these stories and the situation was there is no gay man in Chechnya. But this is a lie, just a lie, because gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people exist everywhere. It's part of our society. It's a part of our lives. So we have to tell about this as loud as possible.
Thank you for this, Nikolai. I strictly believe that you're totally right. So we really need, as a community, it's our social responsibility to be loud and to really spread the information and support our brothers and sisters in Chechnya and help these people to really talk about what's going on in the region and about the help they really need at the moment. Sergei, would you add something to this?
Yes, I think the reaction, the very nervous reaction of Mr. Putin on the question when he had this press conference with Angela Merkel was due to the harsh international pressure that Russian government got from all over the place. And I think it's not very, Russian government, they have lots of problems now with sanctions and the people protesting, for example. They don't want to have another one with LGBT, which shows up in the middle of nowhere in Chechnya, and they never were thinking about this, right? So I think it's very, it's devastating for them when every ambassador, every foreign leader would ask what's going on with gay men in Chechnya, what's going on with gay men in Chechnya. And this is exactly what international community did. Foreign leaders, foreign ambassadors, mainly mostly Western ambassadors, they were asking these questions. They were asking these questions because the media were writing a lot about this, because LGBT organizations were speaking a lot about this in all the countries. And so I think this was very important, and this is actually a very interesting case when human rights can be protected by the society. Because it started with down there, the just usual article in one of the big newspapers, though, but still. And then everybody started to speak about that, and everybody was horrified. And then international leaders started to ask questions. So, as more often they would ask these questions, as better it would be for us and for the Chechenian LGBT.
Okay, thank you. And Russian LGBT network. So you agreed on the petition that Ljubljana Pride is going to spread, and actually would you like to comment the petition, and would you explain us, is the petition really important for your community, and how does it help?
Oh, well, as I said before, it is enormous help, and we are really grateful for the work you do and for the work other people in other countries that do, and for this discussion and for this petition. I believe that all these efforts already done and those to be done in the future, they show that there is an international LGBT community, that is solidarity. And I truly believe that things can change even in Chechnya, even if it's going to take quite a lot of time. And also, as I said before, this visibility is enormously important. I absolutely agree with my colleagues on that. It was the visibility and it was an international pressure that made the Russian authorities to do something, and we hope that few further efforts in this area, they will help really to have investigation, because this is what we need, because as a small NGO we cannot go to Chechnya, we cannot change anything outside, but it is the direct responsibility of the Russian authorities, it is the direct responsibility of the state to investigate such things, such situation. And we truly believe that such things as this petition can help.
Thank you all for taking part in the discussion. And at this moment, we will say goodbye to you. And again, we are really grateful for you to taking part in today's event.
Thanks.
Okay, so actually our discussion doesn't end here, yeah? So thank you very much, Olena, for helping out with this first part. Actually, the idea is we will continue a little bit because we want to maybe reflect first on what we heard, and spend a couple of moments also speaking a little bit more about what we are trying to do actually also, because one thing is of course to understand better what's happening in Russia and in Chechnya. I think it's very important to keep that in mind. I think that part of the reason why we decided to have this first part of the discussion was also to maybe answer some doubts, because when we were preparing this part in the Pride Parade Festival program, actually I spoke with several activists here in Ljubljana or in several people here in Slovenia, and despite being, people who are quite actively following what's happening in politics and in the world, they had doubts actually. Is this really real, what we hear on social media? Because there were also, denial actually from the side of also Russian authorities, from Putin directly, but also obviously from Chechen authorities. So we wanted to kind of, like really hear from the people who are working daily and living daily this situation in Russia. There is no doubt that this is reality, unfortunately. So that's the first message for sure. And yes, and then we were really, like I said before, we were thinking, okay, so what we can do. And in the past 2 months, more or less, or good month, and two, maybe even 2.5 months now, there were several actions and several kind of forces of energy already organizing around this issue. Let's be clear, outside of Slovenia, yeah, because here in Slovenia, that's another issue which I think we have to talk about, how countries like Slovenia actually do not deal with what's happening outside in the world when it comes to these kind of issues. So, for example, you saw that, or you heard that Russian LGBT network was mentioning this situation that they, together with the help of international community, they pressured the authorities to make an official investigation what is happening in Chechnya, yeah? Because their position is very strong that it is the responsibility of Russian authorities, that they have to investigate and that they have to secure all citizens of Russia. And they understand, obviously, Chechen people as citizens of Russia that particularly now need this protection. And what is important to say is that the international pressure they were mentioning actually also was built through a petition. We are talking about a petition that was signed by, at first, at about 500,000 people. And there was an actual protest organized in Moscow to hand over these signatures. And the activists who did that were captured. Yeah, so it was 14th of May. This attempt happened. And actually, we will speak later with one of the people who was in that group trying to hand over those signatures. So there were several attempts to raise awareness about what is happening in Chechnya, organize different types of protests around different cities in Europe and wider, different kinds of vigils and manifestations in front of Russian embassies to, in a way, pressure Russian authorities to give them a sense that the world is watching and this is not going by unnoticed. And then there was also another level of international petitions that were particularly then also mobilizing some funds. As I mentioned before, there are some initiatives, particularly Russia LGBT Network is involved in this, really to organize some safe place for the people when they for those that few that managed to get out of Chechnya, and they need some to be anonymously put in some safe houses and so on, and also some passage out of Russia. Yeah, so there was some financial support also organized again through petitions. Yeah, for people to donate, and people donated money for this. And then there are other attempts around the world to talk about this issue, and of course different countries are differently progressive or ignoring this situation. So we have, as we heard before, we had quite an open claim also from, let's say, the French minister saying, okay, we gave one asylum to one Chechen, person. So we have some situations like this. We have other countries, I think, that have been more systematically supportive of this. I think Canada is one example of a country that is a bit more systematic and doesn't necessarily have to shout the one, because it's not a one, it's more. And then we have other countries, primarily in the EU, that don't really open the doors. Slovenia is one of them. At least that's our estimation. Maybe there's somebody in the audience who would like to contest that. Please, very welcome. We tried to have them here. And so what we wanted to do, because now I described a little bit what has been done in the past months so far, what has not been done yet is to have a systematic, internationally coordinated call and pressure organized for the leaders of the particularly EU, but let's say other countries that could be safe countries for LGBT people from Chechnya, or being persecuted due to being LGBT, also maybe in wider Russia. And so this is what we are actually trying to do now. And we had the idea to start a petition asking to be able to use the petition in every country separately. So that means that we have to build up, in a way, grassroots support for it from in the different countries. And so we have a couple of, let's say, starting points. And before I continue now describing a little bit here what is the possibility to do, because this is something that requires a lot of people. Yeah, it doesn't require so much from the people, but it requires a lot. Petitions are useful when they gather millions. And to gather millions, you need to spread really awareness about the situation and also what you're trying to reach with it. So that's why also we wanted to invite to have one more conversation now with another guest, Yuri Guayana from an organization, international kind of like campaigning organization called All Out. So Yuri will join us over Skype in a second. I will need a couple of minutes maybe to set that up. But in any case, maybe before we continue with that part, still somebody from the audience actually wants to comment something on this whole situation, because I think maybe you have also some experience. I know that many of you tried to address also this issue in Slovenia already. I know some of you sitting here today have had a meeting this morning with the Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Slovenia. So maybe in that time you would actually like to share, because this struggle is not a struggle of Ljubljana Pride Association. This is our common struggle, how to raise this issue here in Slovenia and what happens when we try. So maybe one of my colleagues in the audience would like to say something about it.
Hello, Simona, and everybody else. So I'm Jerne from Škuc Magnus. Today we had a very interesting meeting at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where with a colleague from Legabitra, and actually we put the issue of Chechnya and as the main thing for LGBT organizations in Slovenia that we want to bring up. And they said that they will try to do anything in their power, and will actually do more to do it publicly, because we raised an issue that there is the problem is that when there is not a public statement from an institution, it's like silence, and it's well, it's like that. So they actually said that they will try to do everything in their power to speak about it more publicly, even on local level and on international level. Now, I really hope that will happen, and that will help our colleagues in Russia, but we'll see.
Yane, one question, because some weeks ago there was a public letter circulating around that Škuc actually made or published, and that was in a way an attempt to raise some public awareness and to have a reaction also from the authorities. So what happened?
Well, the meeting today was actually a follow-up of that. I mean, we started in March, I think, with the first letter, which got no response, which was sent to the Foreign Ministry and the media, and it got no response whatsoever from nobody. So in 14 days, we did another letter, and then finally some media published it, and Ministry just sent us a letter that they agree with us, but not making a public statement, which was not enough for us. And so today we raised this question person to person, and again, we will see what will happen. I'm very I was very disappointed when writing these letters, and especially also from the side of the media in Slovenia, as you find that in reality not much people care about gay people, and we as a community have to be aware of that and really scream our voices.
Can I add something? Actually, I'm a member of the Commission of Human Rights at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a representative of NGOs, together with Katarina from PITS. And I raised the question to the person responsible for LGBT issues at the Foreign Ministry weeks ago, asking if, forwarding the ILGA questions, if Slovenia will be active in some way in raising the voice or in opening the doors. The response was that Slovenia was active and is active and is joining the international community efforts. But regarding the asylum, the response was that LGBT persons from Chechnya has equal opportunities when they ask for asylum, and they will be treated in the same way as others. But today the minister, I think, they changed this, and they opened up, and they said that they will help, and they will be more forward and helping in delivering the asylum to persons from Chechnya. So I think there is some small movement that is happening. But of course, I agree, we have to do the pressure in order to make these words become facts.
Yeah, thanks for that. I don't know if we have colleagues from Amnesty International also here. Wonderful, because I know that days, maybe a week ago, we also spoke, and Amnesty is actually also organizing a petition with a bit different ask, maybe, but also you could say maybe in a couple of words what was actually the response, because you are mobilizing, let's say, general society for petitions that you want to raise an issue with. So what was actually the response here in Slovenia to the petition that Amnesty is organizing?
Okay, thank you. I'm Metka from Amnesty International here in Slovenia, and thanks for the opportunity to talk. Yes, we actually have a petition already online, and thanks again for having us also on Saturday when the march is going on, and we will ask people to sign it. Yes, it's directed towards Russian authorities because as your this activist from Russian LGBT network was emphasizing, they are primarily responsible, of course, to make sure that this stops, that those that did these horrible things are brought to justice, and of course that they protect people in Chechnya. But however, having said that, I really appreciate and support your petition because I know it's always the joint effort, you know, so it's like we can't just leave it also only to the Russian authorities. We need to put pressure on, of course, other governments also. And again, it's always a problem with asylum seekers, as we know, when it is refugees, when it is LGBTs, and so on. So we just hope that giving more light to this and talk more about it, then we will jointly achieve more. About your question, our petition here in Slovenia, well, it was like, my feelings are mixed because we are in this business of, you know, collecting signatures, and sometimes it's really tiresome and frustrating because people really kind of like things on Facebook but don't sign petitions, so please do sign petitions about everything. I mean, about human rights issues. So it's like we don't have already massive support, but we spread it out there, and we do count on having more signatures also on Saturday, and thanks so much because we already were in Tiffany and so on. As far for the whole world is concerned, we already had global massive actions coordinated on the 2nd of June when we gave our petitions. It was around 500,000 also to the embassies, but here in Slovenia we just kind of said, let's just wait for the Pride Parade so that we can combine everything. Yeah. This is it. Please do sign our petition also because, as I said, it's different audiences, and it's really very important to put pressure. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think I'm ready now. We can try to see Yuri, and we will put Yuri on the screen.
Hello.
Hi, darling. Hi, Yuri. So let me just see if everything's okay here. You can, yeah. So yeah, like this. So welcome to our discussion, Yuri. Let me give you a very, very brief recap of what we did so far, because you are kind of jumping in the middle of about 1 hour and 15 minutes of already a kind of a discussion about, firstly, what is the situation in Russia with LGBT rights, and particularly the situation in Chechnya. So we had speakers before introducing one person, a member of Russia LGBT network. I know you are very much familiar with that organization. And also we had two other speakers, one organizer of Moscow Pride and another one journalist that also is an associate journalist with Novaya Gazeta. So both very, very active and engaged in situation with LGBT rights in Russia, and also very much aware and following what is happening in Chechnya. So our audience here heard a little bit, I would say more in detail what is happening and the challenges in Russia in a way to also keep up the international pressure, for example, for Russian authorities to conduct the investigation into what is happening in Chechnya, to pressure them into responsibility. And we also asked everyone, how can we help from outside, and what does it mean to have some international support and solidarity and pressure from outside. So this is where we are right now. I already introduced to our audience that Ljubljana Pride, together with international partners, is starting actually today a particular petition focused on asking for asylum and kind of alleviated visa procedures for LGBT people from Chechnya in particular, like as an emergency response to what is happening. So this is where we are. And Yuri, before we start with anything else, can you briefly introduce yourself to us? Who are you as an activist, and also who are you as an active campaigner and member of All Out? Because I think that our audience here doesn't necessarily know much about All Out, and maybe also doesn't know so much about the multi-issue campaigning organizations.
Thank you very much for having me with you. And first of all, happy Pride to all of you. I'm really happy to be with you. So my name is Yuri Guayana. I'm a campaigns manager at All Out. My favorite pronouns are he and him, by the way. And so I'm an activist in Italy, and I work in a local organization here in the country, but also I work, as Simona, you said before, at All Out. And my responsibility is to identify campaigns all over the world that can help local organizations on the ground to bring some international pressure where it's needed, to elevate their requests or to help build up some pressure for the authorities in a specific country, and basically supporting the work that organizations on the ground are doing. I particularly stress this point because this is a key value for us. We always work in close partnership with our organization, with our partner organizations, in order to help them and try to elevate their demands. So I don't know if you want me to go into our work with now, or if you want to keep that for later.
I would say it would be interesting for us to hear about All Out and your personal work also with the situation in Chechnya and your petitions, and also what you've managed to achieve with it, because I think here we are particularly interested to understand what can be done with this mechanism of a petition and building international pressure through this.
Absolutely. So right because of the close partnership and close relationship that we managed to build with the Russian LGBT network, we've been working with them for years now. Right after Novaya Gazeta broke the news, the terrible news on Chechnya, we contacted the Russian LGBT network straight away and asked them if they thought there was something that we could do together. So they thought that a petition for asking Russian authorities to carry out a thorough investigation was something very important to do, and international pressure was particularly welcomed. So on the 4th of April, we managed to set up the petition and launch the petition, which managed to raise more than 150,000 signatures. This is the one part of the work that we did. I will finish off this part first, and then I will go to the other part. This is our advocacy campaign, and so knowing that the situation was getting more and more horrifying, we decided to try and go the extra mile for this campaign. So we contacted Abaz and Change.org. In reality, one Russian activist who launched a petition campaign on Change.org, and we tried to organize a delivery of the signatures together for these three organizations. We asked the Russian LGBT network if they thought a delivery in person was something that could be useful for them. They said yes. And so we managed to put together over 2 million signatures, which is more than the population in Chechnya, which is 1,300,000 people. And for the first time, we managed to put together these three organizations, Avaz, Change.org, and All Out, and have a joint delivery in person. After we decided that a delivery in person was okay, we felt that it was just right for a campaigner of ours, in particular myself, to go to Moscow and share, at least for once, what is the usual routine for Russian activists when they try to do something that goes outside, the walls of an office or the walls of a gay venue or the walls of somebody's house. So I decided to offer the Russian LGBT activists my going there. They decided that could be useful because the presence of somebody from outside of Russia could bring more awareness in the international community about the situation in Chechnya and Russia. So I decided to go, and we tried to deliver these over 2 million signatures to the Prosecutor General of the Russian Federation. Unfortunately, the police didn't allow us to do that. They stopped us, they searched us, and they arrested us and kept us in detention for several hours. I emphasize again that this for me was something that happened once in my experience as an activist. For Russian activists, happens regularly every time they try to do something like that. But in this case, the reaction of Italian media and to a lower degree the French and the international media was prompt. They covered the news. In Italy, it was obviously bigger because I'm Italian. And that helped bring in more and more attention. Still now, there are a lot of organizations that are working on Chechnya together with the Russian LGBT network in Italy. So this is one part, the advocacy part. Then the other part of our job was, obviously, we realized that the work of the Russian LGBT network trying to evacuate people from Chechnya was something that required help, financial help. So we launched on April 11th a fundraiser campaign together with the Russian LGBT network to raise some money to support this effort. And that was a massive success. More than 10,000 people donated for this cause, and allowed the Russian LGBT network, still allows the Russian LGBT network to carry on with their amazing job of not only helping people to leave Chechnya, but also helping people to survive in the safe houses, in safe places that they organize around Russia for Chechen victims. Of course, we realized that wasn't enough again, because we know that people in Russia, Chechen victims in Russia, aren't safe. They cannot look for a job, for instance, because sharing their details with an employer can be dangerous, because what a victim called the long arms of the Chechen authorities, or unfortunately of relatives, as you know, in Chechnya, may find them and they risk their lives, literally. So one thing that we did back in May was to ask Malcolm Turnbull, the Prime Minister of Australia, to grant safe haven and refuge to .
Yuri?
we may...
Yuri, we lost you there for a second. Can you repeat your last sentence? With the Prime Minister of Australia, we got stuck.
Absolutely. Yes, that's the other campaign that we launched in May to ask the Prime Minister of Australia to provide refuge and safety in Australia for gay LGBT people fleeing Chechnya. That was a campaign that may be replicated in other countries, because this is the emergency now, as we know. And then another campaign that we did, still in April, on the 23rd of April, we realized that Merkel was going to run with Putin. So to keep the Russian LGBT network again, together with a lot of other organizations in Germany, Enough is Enough and others, we decided to launch a campaign to ask Merkel to mention Chechnya in her private talks and publicly with Putin in Russia, and she did. She was the first European leader to actually reprimand publicly Putin for not doing enough. We could also say not doing anything, basically, to protect LGBTI people in Chechnya. After Merkel, even France, as you know, even the Prime Minister of France did something similar. We didn't have any campaign for France, but so basically this is the work that we did at All Out for Chechnya so far.
Thank you very much, Yuri. I think that was quite an exhaustive presentation, and I think it also speaks on the fact that, okay, here in Slovenia, maybe we are in a smaller country, and connections between civil society and some decision makers sometimes can be closer, sometimes not, but in any case, especially on the more international level, this pressure can actually result in some concrete actions also on the political side. So I think this is very important to hear, that there are successes with behind this kind of mass mobilization, so that people, when they do sign something or they do support a petition, it's not something that is kind of lost in space, but that there is organized groups afterwards using this for political causes. So I think that's for a start quite good. Perhaps on this point some question from the audience or some point of clarification maybe on this approach. We have one question from the audience, so just a second, Yuri.
I'd like to know that is there any report or information, is there any background which has been driving such extreme action of the homophobia in Chechnya? Because each country has a different issue. It's a religious reason or governmental policy or ideology, and then I don't know, or some kind of the personal incidents first, and then they become the hysteric, the big action, and then they hurt the people, or from the beginning organized detention, organized arresting of the people. If there is any information about such a thing, because such a thing, I believe there can see, for example, the religious reason, there is a religious leader, and there, for example, he or she is driving such an extreme action, execution, and then is there any possibility to have a diplomatic discussion with such a leader, or no, just a social hysteric action, or there is a lot of reason, and if there is some report.
Okay, Yuri.
Yes, I kind of lost you for a couple of seconds. So I'm not sure if I quite understood the question.
Okay, so the question was, do you have any report or any knowledge why actually in Chechnya now in particular there is such homophobic violence? You know, why right now? Or did something happen? What would be the reasons, like the root causes? Is it religious? Is it some leaders, like religious leaders? What would be in the background of these particular violent actions now?
Yes, thank you for the question, and sorry for having lost you for a second. So it's very difficult to tell. Honestly, it's extremely difficult to have information. The Russian LGBT network bases their information on the victims that they managed to be in touch with. But Human Rights Watch published quite an extensive report recently. And in these reports, there may be some answer to the question. So for years and years in Chechnya, especially gay men were mistreated in the region. What happened was that when they were found by the police or the militia, they were asked for money in order for the police not to out them with their families. We know that Chechnya is an extremely conservative society where honor killing is still in place. Honor killing is this practice that requires to murder somebody to wash away any offense to the honor of the family. So because of that, the police knew that they could blackmail gay men who were literally risking their lives. So that's after that, from February, for some victims, it was also from December. We're not entirely sure when this escalation began. The police started to apply to gay men, especially, or perceived gay men, what they have been applying before to other groups of people, drug addicted or political opponents to Kadyrov, who is the leader of Chechnya. So I think it's a combination of things. This is a speculation. Obviously, we don't have any hard data on that at the moment. The speculation can be that they just decided to apply a very horrific, I can't find any other word, repression to gay men that they were already applying to other people.
Well, I would add to your question, and just kind of shortly describe the situation. So Chechnya is a very different region in Russia, actually. So kind of Russian Federation had 2 wars in Chechnya with local separatists who wanted kind of to be a separate country, right? And these wars were pretty exhausting, for the whole country. And as Sergei told us before, right? So many people from kind of kids of this war, they are now terrorists. They taking part in ISIS and so on. So so the region is pretty difficult. So kind of Russian Federation agreed to put this kind of region in peace, so they just do whatever they want there, and peace is in the region, no war anymore. Russia invests a lot of money to and develop the region and so on. Well, and that leads to the fact that actually there is no power of law in the region. There is only the power of a local authority, of the leader of Chechen Republic. And this is kind of a family business, you know, rich families around this, the leader of Republic, and actually connections, family connections, and really, as Yuri said, the family honor, you know, so this is kind of Islam tradition, so, you know, women must do that, men must do that, no LGBT thing, nothing, yeah, so, and everybody who will just make a small step aside of this strict line will be punished. As a Russian LGBT network member told us before in a conversation, you know, we just know, you know, just in March, this newspaper in Russia, they raised up the question. But we just know for sure that these repressions, they didn't start in March. They started, nobody knows where and when, you know. So for now, we know of 26 people killed. But how many were killed last year, the year before, you know? I think the repressions now are tighter because LGBT movement in Russia growing up, and they are also kind of stronger, you know? And this is kind of, you know, their answer. So the more powerful is the movement, the more strict is the answer. So Chechnya is really homophobic now, just to show kind of on the place. You will not do it. In this house, in this region, you will not do it. As I told before, yes, I recently read it, so the leader of the Republic said, like, we don't have LGBT people. We don't have. Just go on the street and ask, who is LGBT? Who? We don't have anyone, you know? And this is like, you know, we never had it. It's not in our tradition. This is like kind of something that went from Europe. They had it all the time. We never, you know. So they even oppress everything in this region. So this is kind of logical consequence of everything what was going on in this region since like 25 years.
Thank you, Olena. Thanks for the question. Going back to also one important point to conclude actually our discussion today and to kind of like make the final cherry on the cake. Yuri, you know very well, we talked before, Ljubljana Pride together with international partners wants to start or is starting actually today officially international petition. In this petition, we are asking for asylum, like emergency asylum, and we are asking also for visa, kind of more easy, not have to pay and so on for the visa for people to get out of Russia actually, because we know that it's not safe for Chechen LGBT people to stay in Russia in most of these cases. So you are working in an international campaigning organization. This, you know, you did a lot of successful petitions. So of course, I will share with the audience here that we are also asking maybe that All Out would be in the future one of the organizations that maybe also would support this petition, but we have to see how that would work. But maybe outside of that, in your professional capacity, what does it take for a petition like this to be successful? What would be like your take on it, maybe your advice? What do we need to actually succeed with this and actually pressure more EU countries, more of our prime ministers, more of our ministers of foreign affairs to actually grant asylum to people?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So it really I think everything goes together. And around a crisis like this one is there, then local organizations on the ground have the chance to actually, you know, build around this energy some concrete actions, such as a petition, to channel this energy into action. So I think this is a very good time because there is still energy around the crisis in Chechnya. There is definitely a pretty spread knowledge of the fact that at the moment the main request coming from LGBT activists in Russia is to help Chechen victims to leave the country and finally be safe. So I think that is speaking about the technicalities of a petition, the success for a petition. I think this is a very promising context, not only to make the petition a success, but possibly to also try and get the real success out of it, which is persuading the authorities in all European Union member states, but also in other countries around the world, to finally provide safe haven and refuge to Chechen victims. So I think this is the right time to start, and congratulations on Ljubljana Pride for started this petition. We absolutely welcome the fact that this petition can be replicated in other countries within the European Union and outside the European Union. I think it's definitely something that possibly also hacking to see whether it makes sense to do that outside of Europe, for instance, and so we're looking into that, but I'm not able now to take commitment on that.
Yuri? Hello, Yuri, can you still hear us? Okay, yeah? Okay, we had a little bit connection problem again, so we lost your last sentence. I'm sorry for that. Maybe you can repeat the last sentence and then we will wrap up slowly.
Yeah, I think I was saying that it's that there is I don't remember actually what I was saying at the beginning, at the end, but I was basically saying that this is definitely something that has legs to be a successful campaign, not only in the European Union, but also outside the European Union, and we are looking into that as all out.
Thank you very much. For us, that is, of course, a very promising outlook. Yuri, thank you for joining us for this insight into the world of campaigning organization and also efforts of All Out. Congratulations and thank you for the work that you are doing and the successes that you already had. I think also thank you very much for explaining very concretely in the beginning how important it is to actually support the needs of the local LGBT organizations. I think this is a very, very important message, I think especially for everyone who wants to do something for other people. And I think this is important to understand that to start from cooperation from the people on the ground and from the needs, and also to understand what are the challenges and risks with this. And so thank you for that part. And with this, I think we can say goodbye to you, and with a hopeful view on the possible future cooperation. So Yuri, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tako. Evo, zdaj smo pa še pri zadnjem delu. We are at the very last part. Thank you for all your Attention, this room is very hot. My gosh, I don't know when I drank so much water in 2 hours. What I want to show you now is actually the petition that we are talking about for 2 hours now. So now you can see it. We put up this petition as a start on a platform called umove.eu, u.wemove.eu. That's how you get to it actually. And this, you can see the title. We can share it later around with everyone, and you will see it spread tomorrow on Facebook and all other kind of social media. Everyone who has an active email will receive also something in the email, so you will be very much invited to click and sign it. What I want to say about this petition, it's you can see it's addressed. It's called asylum for, well, I will say like this, the original petition exists in English language because we coordinated actually the requests and asks with our partners. And we had, Russian LGBT network on the table. We had people like Yuri on the table. We had my colleagues from We Move EU, We Move Europe on the table, and actually myself and my colleague Martin, who is a senior campaigner at We Move Europe. We drafted the original English text, but we have a premiere start in the Slovenian language, which is, I think, one of a kind. Not many of these international petitions ever make it to Slovenian language, and even fewer actually have their debut in the Slovenian context. So it is addressed always to the head of, let's say, authority on these issues in the state. So in our case, it's to the Prime Minister, and it has 3 basic requests. The request is to grant as immediate asylum to anyone who is from Chechnya as an LGBT person and is being persecuted based on their sexual identity. And then also it says that to offer a visa to or an assisted travel to the first safe country. And it also says that with concrete actions also to pressure Russia and demand that the persecution of LGBT people in Chechnya and in Russia to stop. So these are the 3 main requests inside. Why these 3 requests? We said a little bit before, which is that considering the situation, and as much as we all know that it's Russia's responsibility to deal with this, we also know that the reality of people is that they're being killed. So this is an emergency situation, and in emergency situations, like in situation of war, you have to offer some safe haven for the people whose lives are in danger. So that's why part of this response and the solution is to actually have organized safety for the persecuted people, but they need to get to this safety. So there are 2 sides of this coin. One is our countries need to be willing to grant them asylum. So it's very good news from Mr. Erjavec. I think now we will all hold him to his word, and I think this petition will be one of the tools to not let go what he said today. But the other very, very important issue is also that people need to get to the safe countries. People need to get to a place where they can ask for asylum. And this safe passage very often is connected to visas. And I don't know how many of you ever tried to organize a visa for a person from Russia? Or how many of you are in the situation that yourself might be a Russian citizen and need a visa to Slovenia, for example? Well, darlings, good luck. Because that's like science fiction sometimes. And so if you are not very well administratively supported, if you do not have money to travel to a place where you can get your documents organized, if you don't have a guarantee from Slovenia in our case, and so on and so forth, actually you don't get this visa, yeah? I mean, right now I was at the office here in the municipality of Ljubljana, where as a guarantor you sign. And I came with a document, official document from the website, and they looked at it and they said, this document doesn't have a map of Europe printed as a background. And I was like, Okay, and they were checking, oh, it has all the data that you need, but it doesn't have the map of Europe. So in Russia, in the Russian embassy, this will not be accepted. You will be refused if you don't have the document with the Europe map on the background. And this was an official document from a link of the Slovenian ministry, you know? So these are the kind of absurdities. So if you imagine somebody in this life-threatening situation, you can see how important it is actually that the authorities stop fucking around with us. I'm sorry for my blunt language, but this is what they're doing actually to people that are being killed. And so from this frustration and anger also comes a little bit of this response, because we know that in reality, situation is quite shitty. So that's why we hope actually that all of you will join into this petition. What you can see at the bottom here is that this petition is done in partnership. So by now, officially already, Legebitra has joined and given us green light that we can sign them. Officially also LGBT asylum support from Netherlands, because Netherlands is one of the countries in which we will do this petition as well, because they have a lot of need also to pressure their authorities to grant. And LGBT asylum support is our partner organization. We already worked with them last year addressing a little bit this issue, and they actually have a couple of, for some years already, trying to help Russian people who are being persecuted to grant them asylum in the Netherlands. Cologne Pride from Germany being another one. We have other partners from Austria and from other countries as well who already confirmed that they will be part of this petition, which also means we will have it in these languages. They will spread it through their social media, and most importantly, they're willing that after people sign, so all of us sign, they will also use it as a tool to pressure their authorities for these causes. Yeah. So petitions work if you spread the word. So please share on Facebook, sign, please share in the emails. I know it's very, very much annoying. I can let you know that my colleague Vesna there, she is the technical setup person for the petition. We are making great efforts to try to translate as much of the functionalities on the website, which are primarily in English, to have them in Slovenian language, so that if you do not want to receive other topics in the petition world outside of our petition, it's possible to unsubscribe. So please don't get afraid. My mom recently signed one of the petitions, and she's now in panic because she doesn't read any English and that she's getting some emails. So we are trying to make sure that it's in Slovenian language, everything is available to also not deter people from actually signing petitions and actually understanding this importance. So also on the technical side, we have support. Thank you, Vesna, on that one. It's also an important effort, yeah? Good. So I guess with this, we've managed to make a 2-hour marathon complete. We have 2 minutes before 9 o'clock, so we are quite okay with time. If you allow me, then I will say thank you for coming, and the petition asking for asylum for people from LGBT people from Chechnya is open. Thank you.
You know, I want to add one important for me personal thing. Russia is a very powerful country, you know, and I just survived it kind of myself, because when, as you, Nikolai told you, when Russia had this anti-gay law, when it was running, we in Ukraine were kind of smiling, you know. Oh my God, they are so undemocratic, you know. And then in 1 year, our parliament was about to translate this law from Russian to Ukrainian and adopt it in Ukrainian legislation, you know. So just thanks to Ukrainian revolution, we just avoided it, because Russia is really powerful. Do not underestimate it. Just fight against it, because if we not oppress Russia, then Russia will come for us, because they are really powerful and they have a big political influence. And if we will not step against them right now, so sooner or later they will, you know, with all this financing anti-LGBT movement in France and in different countries, they will come for us. So let's, as a community, step together and protect our LGBTQI brothers and sisters in Chechnya. Thank you again.